March Madness is officially a month away from the tournament beginning on with the first round matchups. And today I'm going to be talking about the teams that are getting hot at the right time and are going to be having those win streaks heading into conference tournaments and then heading into, assuming that they win conference championships, that they keep that run going into the March Madness tournament. And the first team that we're going to highlight is the Akron Zips, who currently hold the nation's longest win streak at 14 games. And they've done it in extremely good ways. They've scored 100 points 3 times during this win streak. They've only scored less than 80 points twice, being 71 and 73. And against the second best team in the MAC in Miami of Ohio, they beat them by 27. So they've done it in great ways to keep this winning streak rolling. And honestly, if you want to go back, they lost to Princeton by 1 at Princeton, and then they beat Jackson State the week before, or the game before. So really, had they beaten Princeton, this would be sitting at 16 games. And they've got Ohio next, who they had already beaten by 12. So that could be a game where they end up losing it. And then they play Ball State, who they only beat by 8. So there's 2 games here coming up where there's a good chance that they could fall. But if they win those 2 games, they're going to beat Kent State at home. And then Toledo, who they have already played and only beat by 7 at home. So, and then they finish it off with Buffalo, who they beat by 32. So there's some losable games, especially the 3 that they play on the road, where they can wind up falling to one of these 3 teams. But there's a good chance that they could win out and finish 19 on a 19-game win streak to end the year, which would be huge going into conference tournaments. And honestly, at this point, could wind up with them only being a 5-loss team if they win out. We could see them possibly getting in with an at-large if they make the MAC conference championship game. And now in Akron, they win in like specific ways. They're great offensively. They're super efficient and they move the ball super well. Now they turn the ball over a decent amount and they lack the size. They are the smallest team in all of college basketball, so they lack the size of interior defense. So they're not going to get the blocks that are needed for that interior defense. And if they get matched up with a team of that's a little bit bigger than them, which is going to happen considering that they're probably going to be right around that 12-13 range, they're going to get a good team and they're going to get a team that's a lot bigger than them. And they play kind of that fast pace that Alabama, not quite as fast as Alabama, but in that same region as what Alabama plays in. And I feel like if they get matched up with a team that'll slow them down even the littlest bit, they could wind up, that offense could crumble because they're not going to be able to play at the pace that they want to. And then they're great. They have insane depth. They get 33 points off the bench a game, and their transition offense is insane. And the second team that we're going to look at is Towson. Towson started out the year 4-8, and since then they've won 13 of their last 14 and are now sitting at 18-9 and have won 12 straight. This team is not doing it the way that Akron has. They don't score a lot of points. They have been holding teams defensively, and they don't give up a ton of points. And if you look at some of the games that they've lost, it's because they have given up a ton of points. They gave up 77 to Charleston. They gave up 84 to UMBC. So it's like if their defense plays well enough, they're going to be able to win those games. But if their defense doesn't show up, they're not going to be able to win. And this Towson team's a team that has to go on the road to Elon, who is 16-11. They're above 500. They have to go on the road at Campbell, who also is above 500. And then they get William & Mary at home, and then they get Hampton at home. So I think that this game against Elon is probably where they're if they're going to fall, it's going to be to Elon or Campbell. I don't think that they lose to William & Mary at home or to Hampton at home. which one of those two games, they're going to wind up, I believe, falling in one of those two. But Towson, like I said, they play a lot differently than what Akron does, who's on that insane win streak. And what Towson does is they don't turn it over. They rebound the ball well. They have insane depth. They get a ton of bench points a game. And what they use that rebound to get second chance points. They don't rely on the three. They don't sit out there and try and shoot as many threes as they can a game, which is the opposite of what Akron does. Akron likes to score on the outside. Towson likes to get inside, get those second chance points, and score inside the arc. But they're not the greatest offensively. Like I said, if they don't score a ton of points and hold the teams, then they're not going to wind up winning, and they've done a great job of doing so during this win streak. And they don't shoot it super efficiently, and they don't really move the ball as well as what, in my opinion, what you need to be able to win games. Now they've been able to do it. Their transition offense isn't great, and they don't shoot the free throw very well. And they play at the opposite of what Akron does. They play at that super slow pace compared to what a lot of these teams who are on these win streaks do. They play at these fast pace where these teams that are in their conferences can't keep up, and they're able to win those games. Whereas Towson, they're slowing these teams down and forcing them, getting them out of their comfort zone, and that's how they're winning these games. So I think that Elon, honestly, I believe that they can win out. Towson can win out rather than losing to Elon. But if they were to, Elon is probably the team that's going to beat them. And the third team we're going to talk about is George Mason, who, in my opinion, on this 11-game win streak that they're on right now, I believe that they are playing well enough to be able to get an at-large bid if they don't win their conference. But I do believe that they're going to wind up winning their conference. Yeah, George Mason is 21-5 right now, and they're on an 11-game win streak. But if they're going to lose a game, it's going to be their next one at VCU. VCU and George Mason, I think one of them can get an at-large, and the other one has a great opportunity of winning the conference when they shouldn't get an at-large bid. I think that the A-10 has a very good chance at getting 2 tournament teams in, and they've only lost 5 games this year. One of them was to Marquette, a bad loss to Central Michigan, a loss to East Carolina in double overtime by 1. They lost Central Michigan by 1, and then to Duke, and then to Rhode Island by 3. So in the 3 losses that they had outside of Duke and Marquette, they've lost by a total of 5 points. And they've won 11 straight. And before, outside of the Duke and Rhode Island loss, they had won 8 games before their East Carolina loss. So they have won 19 of their last 21 games. So they have been playing well all season long. And they play VCU next at VCU, and if they're going to lose a game, it's going to be that one. And then they are at home against Fordham. Then they go to Duquesne. Then they're at home against LaSalle, and then they're at Richmond. LaSalle and Richmond are 2 winnable games. So is Duquesne, and really so is Fordham at home. If they're going to lose a game, it's going to be at VCU. So they're set up perfectly to be able to get into the tournament as an at-large. I think that they have a great spot at getting in. And what they do is they are very great defensively, and they grab a lot of offensive rebounds. So they force teams to slow down, and then once they get down onto the other end, they slow it down as well, and they try and get those offensive rebounds. But with those offensive rebounds, they don't get the second chance points to come with the offensive rebounds, and they turn the ball over, and they don't get out in transition very well. So I think that they're kind of in the same boat as like a Drake, a Houston, a North Texas. Like, they are super slow pace, and if they pick up a team that plays at a very good pace or even a fast pace, they're not going to be able to keep up with them compared to what some of these other teams are going to be able to do. And the next team we're going to be talking about is the Yale Bulldogs, who are on a 10-game win streak right now, dating all the way back to January 1st. So it's a month and a half they've been winning games, and that loss came to at UTEP by a total of 1 point. So if you go back even further than that, the last loss they took was on March 2nd against Rhode Island. So they've only lost one game in almost 2 months of basketball. Almost 3 months of basketball. They've only lost one game. So and they do it completely different than what Akron does. They almost do it in the exact same way as what Towson does. They slow the teams down. They don't let them score a ton of points. And they've beaten Princeton twice. They beat Princeton at home by almost 30. So they are able to do this in incredible ways. And then they have Cornell at home, who's a very good team. I don't think that they lose that one. Then they have Columbia at home, which I don't think that they lose that one at all. And then they go to Dartmouth, which I think possibly could be where they lose that game, considering how good Dartmouth has kind of come on here towards the end of the season. And then they're at Harvard, and then they're at Brown. So those last 3 games are all going to be tough, but I think that they can extend this to a 12 game win streak, and I think that they are going to be a 12 seed in the tournament, and I think that they are going to win possibly a game, maybe even 2 games within the tournament. And with Yale, they don't do a lot of things bad. The only thing that they really do bad is they don't get a ton of steals defensively. That is really the only thing that they do bad, and they are average at a lot of things. But what they do good is they have a very good offensive rating. They are one of the top teams with an offensive rating, and they shoot it 39% from 3, and they don't shoot it a lot. So what that says is that they move the ball, they slow the team down, and they get open shots where they're making them, and they don't go down and shoot it quickly, and then they don't turn it over a lot, and they get a ton of rebounds. So I think that if they get a team that is not very good at rebounding, and in the past few years, last year especially within the tournament, those 12-5 upsets, it's going to come with the team that loses is going to be the team that turns the ball over a lot. And that is what Yale does not do. They do not turn the ball over, which is why I think that they're going to be able to, if they're 12, 13 seed, they're going to be able to win that game, especially if they get matched up with a team that's going to turn the ball over a lot. And the next team that we're going to talk about is High Point out of the Big South. And this is a team that scores tremendously. They haven't scored less than 75 points since December 14th against App State, where they scored 65 points. And it goes back all the way to even not scoring 70 points all the way back to November 15th against UAB, where they scored 68 points. So this is a team that scores super efficiently, and they have a 100-point game in there against UNC Asheville, who I believe, if High Point's not going to win, they're probably a team that has a chance to win the Big South. So, and then with just 2 games left on going into conference tournaments on a 9-game win streak like they have been, is just very, very good for this team, being 24-5. And this is a team that, with just those 2 games left at Gardner-Webb, who is 10-16, that's a great opportunity to win that game. Probably not going to lose that one. And then they're at home against USC Upstate, who is just 5-23 overall in the year and 1-12 within the Big South. So I think that they have a very good chance of finishing this year on an 11-game win streak going into conference tournaments, and they have a great chance of winning their conference and finishing the year 26-5 in a great point within the tournament. And I think that they are another team that could end up as a 13 seed and has a chance at upsetting a team because, like I said, they don't turn the ball over. They grab a ton of offensive rebounds. They're very deep. They get a ton of bench points, and they have a great effective field goal percentage. On shots that are very effective, they hit them. They are great from deep, but they lack blocks and steals. They're not very good defensively. They don't get a ton of defensive rebounds, and they play at that slower pace that a lot of these teams do that don't uh, that don't translate well within the tournament, and then they don't get those assists that are needed, in my opinion, to win those tournament games. So that is just a couple of the teams that are getting hot at the right time or have been getting hot at the right time, and where I think that they can do a lot of their damage in their conference championship, in their conference tournaments, in the March Madness tournament, and kind of. I think a lot of these teams, because of how hot they're getting right now, I think they can win a game within March Madness. So we'll see. Thanks for watching.